All right, and we're back with another video once again. And I know a lot of people have been commenting and participating on my chat room, and they've been saying that me and you work pretty good together as a team. So I figure, why not let's keep the ball rolling and just see where it takes us. You know, I appreciate everybody who's been participating in the live chat rooms on our discussions and also in the comment section as well. I want to give Veronica and Samantha a shout out, and Dark Horse and everybody else who even partakes into the video as well. Even give Veronica a shout out. But anyways, this was sort of a video request by Polston, and also my manager Rick Chavales. He told me, if you guys are going to cover wrestling, why don't you cover the Chris Benoit murder story and the conspiracies and everything going behind it, and little behold, Polston himself was already going to cover this, and I said, you know what, why don't we just kill two birds with one stone and let's just do it together?
Yeah. It's one of those things that I've made many videos on, and it's one of those things that is it's a very interesting narrative, and that's what I'm going to call it.
All right, now
I'm not going to
go ahead.
Go ahead. I was going to say, I don't call it a case really, and I don't think anybody really knows the truth. But there are some interesting theories out there.
All right. Now, before we go into it, let's just go ahead and, for the viewers who are new or for people who aren't familiar with Chris Benoit, former WCW champion, former World Wrestling Federation / WWE champion. And just so that way the viewers know, you can also look up the Chris Benoit double murder and suicide. It was over a 3-day period between June 22nd and June 24th. In 2007, Chris Benoit, 40-year-old veteran Canadian professional wrestler employed by the WWE and living in Fayetteville, Georgia, killed his wife Nancy Benoit and suffocated their 7-year-old son Daniel before hanging himself. And it happened on June 25th, 2007. When the bodies were found, and they considered it, or they called it, the coroner's office ruled it as a murder-suicide. Total of deaths 3, including the perpetrator. The weapons used was a strangle cord. Now, according to detectives, they said they found Chris Benoit's body with his son and his wife both hanged, and that there were Bibles laying beside them. I don't know if you heard about that. Benoit was scheduled to go up against a match against CM Punk for vengeance. And it said that the night of Champions pay-per-view, the night he died, was amongst many WWE personnel that commented on Benoit during the 3-hour tribute show on Raw. He also briefly touched on the subject of the Benoit murder-suicide in a 2011 interview with GQ. Now, we've seen all types of documentaries on this. They talked about David Benoit says the Dark Side of the Ring series helped him let go of 13 years of pain. This, and that. Chavo Guerrero gave his opinion of that. Now, there's many conflicting stories to this, because you even showed me that little documentary. What was the documentary called, Polston?
Well, it wasn't a documentary. It was a shoot by Billy Jack Haynes.
Okay, now, can you go over some of the conspiracy theories as to how Benoit was killed and all this? Or what's your personal belief on it?
Now, when you said, there's been like several different conspiracy theories that I've went over. You can find several of them on the internet.
Okay.
A lot of people who are associated with Benoit have their own theories. That are out here on the internet if you look it up. And, a lot of people seem to think that it's possibly a hit. There are some of those that believe that there's something more to be said.
Okay.
Now, you said about the Bibles being by the bodies and stuff like that.
Yeah, that's allegedly what they said.
That's alleged. But I've also heard that he hung himself with his own gym equipment, and the way that he would have had to do that, the way that they found the body, and if you ever read the report, he was hanging from his own gym equipment with like a towel around his neck or something.
Wow.
And it almost, seems like it could have potentially been a hit with the description of the crime scene. With that being said, it seems like the narrative shifted. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
Whenever the news first hit the WWE universe, that first night they had a big memorial. Everybody's talking about Chris Benoit and what kind of a great guy he was, and how he loved his family, and how everything was going great. In that second week, they had came back and said they'd never talk about Chris Benoit again. And supposedly between that week and the second week, he killed his wife and his kid out of the blue. And then you started to have a lot of people just feeding you narrative scripts. Now, initially, and this is the very first thing. So this is if you know anybody, or if you have any loved ones that suffer from Alzheimer's, or dementia, or something like that, you already understand. You know, it's complicated. You know what I'm saying? You're talking about people. You know, whenever you see a silver alert or something like that, that is a dementia patient or somebody with Alzheimer's who's wandered off somewhere and their family can't find them. They can do that quite a bit. We had to put her in the nursing home. You know, memory lapses. You can tell if somebody has the brain of an 80-year-old with dementia.
Wow. And
that was the first excuse that WWE gave for the quote-unquote murders. Now, was it a cover-up for roid rage? I don't know. Typically, you would have probably heard more stories if he was, you know, I think that from everybody was saying is that it wasn't Chris Benoit to do any kind of drugs. You know what I'm saying? He wouldn't even drink alcohol. So I find that a little hard to believe, especially he was in shape. He was a big guy, but he didn't look like roid big. You know what I'm saying? He looked natural. So for me to sit there and take somebody saying, "Oh yeah, it was roid rage," it's really hard for me to believe that. You know what I'm saying? It really is. And so now, what are we sitting here? Why do we have to create a story? That's my problem with it, because I'm going to tell you right now that they lied to you. This story is a complete and utter lie. It doesn't even make pragmatic sense. And if people would just sit back instead of watching Nancy Grace and getting upset and caught in their emotions, you're caught in your feelings, and stop back and say, hey, wait a minute, evaluate this story and say, this doesn't make any sense. The story doesn't make any sense. Well, you can't do that because they call you a conspiracy theorist. For the most part, these people that you call conspiracy theorists just want the truth. They want the answers. And they're not getting satisfactory answers. You can't tell me that the man had a brain of an 80-year-old with dementia. Your uncle wrestles, right?
Yeah.
All that shit's choreographed, right? He's got to hit his moves, make sure he's not going to hurt his opponent, you know, or cripple him.
He just recently got a concussion on taking a hard fall into a chair in October of last year, and then he also had his nose broken in June, months before that.
So it takes a sharp mind to do that, right?
Yes.
It takes a sharp mind to be able to put on this show, whether it's, you know, choreographed or not. You still got to hit your marks. You still got to hit your spots. Mm-hmm. Then you got to remember lines and dialogue. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, my uncle cuts good promos, so.
Yeah, and he's got to hit that dialogue. He's got to he's got to remember those lines out the ring, because he's not going to go out there and take the freaking, you know, script out there and read it, you know, verbatim. That'd be fucking stale. So you've got to have a sharp mind. You've got to be able to remember stuff. You got to be able to recall stuff. You're interacting with fans. How come nobody, all of a sudden, nobody has mentioned any of these incidents with Chris Benoit only after these alleged, you know, double murder suicide happened? That's when the narrative switched. That's whenever all the wrestlers went from, oh, Chris Benoit's this great guy and he was a great father and who would do this? This is such a travesty. To, oh, they had problems. They were getting divorced. Oh, yeah, you know, he threatened all this kind of stuff. He was roid raging. Oh, no, he he had a brain of an 80-year-old with dementia, and he just wasn't there, and he snapped. You know what I'm saying? Nobody mentioned that until after the narrative had flipped between the first Raw and the second Raw. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, exactly.
So we can already, disregard the fact that this is a story. And in fact, I think that the overall professional that came out with this CTE and the 80-year-old brain with dementia was actually a WWE former wrestler for the WWE. You see how it's scripted? You see how they're trying to shape a narrative? It's like they're trying to do a storyline, and this is all kayfabe. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, but why ruin somebody's wrestling career? Because like Benoit would have to, if assuming he's still alive, or assuming he was willing to go through with that, wouldn't that ruin his career, his legacy, to be known as a double murder, homicide, suicide?
Well, here's the deal, right? There's a bunch of theories behind this.
Okay, let's go over all of them.
I'll go over the first one. This one's been out there for a while, and in fact, I've mentioned this in multiple videos that I've done. Is that when Eddie Guerrero died, which there's actually speculation and there's rumors about Eddie's death, about negligence or something, whatever it is. The WWE could have potentially been held liable. Ironically, they bring in Vicky after Eddie's death, I guess, to subsidize her in some way. Supposedly, Chris Benoit was writing a journal of all the stuff that was happening up until Eddie's death. Now, you can go back, you can listen to interviews, like I think Chris Benoit's interview after Eddie Guerrero died, and he mentions his wife buying him a diary where he was going to write all this stuff down and then give it to Eddie's family. You know what I'm saying? And supposedly, this is according to some people that was in that circle. You know what I'm saying? That knew that were close to the situation, is that it was detailing the death of Eddie Guerrero, and it hit too close to home for Vince, like for some sort of scandal. And then whenever he said that, and they started chronicling all that, all the stuff going on before Eddie's death, that kind of marked him. You know what I'm saying? Because they wanted that journal, they wanted the diaries, and they wanted that whatever he was writing, the information, the inside information, they didn't want that to get out. So I've heard the interview, so this is, whether or not it was, going to expose the WWE, if it was,
or essentially incriminate Vince.
Yeah, but if it was something that could potentially incriminate Vince McMahon, then I don't know for sure, 110%. But I know he was going to do. He was chronicling something, because he actually said that in the interview. He did an interview right after Eddie Guerrero's death. So that right there, it could be investigated potentially. We need to see these diaries. We need to know what was in these diaries. And, could it have potentially put Vince at risk? Well, there's, God, I can't think. I think his name is Johnny Angel.
Yeah.
He was a professional wrestler. Now, this is where your Kevin Sullivan comes in at.
Yeah, I was just about to ask you, where does Kevin Sullivan come in on all this? Okay.
Right.
Okay.
Kevin Sullivan, of course, was married to Nancy Benoit, which was Chris's wife before Chris.
Okay.
And, she left him, art imitating life, you know what I'm saying? To where they were having an affair, in kayfabe-wise for the show, and that ended up turning into a real-life romance.
Wow.
And so, of course, Chris left. You can go back. You can look up interviews with Mike Graham. They were very, very adamant, because Mike Graham and Kevin Sullivan were really close. And you can look up the Mike Graham interview about Chris Benoit. And no doubt that Mike Graham said, well, if he would have done that to me, I would have killed him. I would have cut off his head and stuck it on a stake, and I would have let the neighborhood kids throw
Wait,
rocks
who
at
said
it.
this? Who said this?
Mike Graham.
Wow.
So that circle that Kevin Sullivan, would they have really done it? Was he just playing to a character? I don't know. But it was kind of incriminating, and not long after Mike Graham committed suicide. So there was motive there for certain individuals. You know what I'm saying? A lot of really weird stuff surrounding. If you go back and look up Arn Anderson's promo on Chris Benoit, it's kind of creepy. You know what I'm saying?
Well, let's go over it. I know who Arn Anderson is. Used to be with the Four Horsemen.
Yeah. His promo that he did in WCW, whenever the whole, at the time Nancy's name was Woman going in WCW, and how Chris Benoit, Arn Anderson did a promo, and basically just saying that, oh, this is disgusting, and you don't never take your buddy's girlfriend and all kinds of stuff, and you don't never mess with another man's home, talking about Chris Benoit.
You makes a good point there,
Yeah. So, I mean, yeah. Like, if you hear the interviews and you watch the Dark Side of the Ring, they go into a little bit more of a detail. But like I said, they don't stray off from the official narrative because they know better. However, like I said, was it a hit? Did Vince really want that notebook? Possibly. You know what I'm saying?
Okay, so the CTE, you got the notebook, and then you got the Sullivan. People say Sullivan took him out. What are some other? That's connected. All this is connected. Yeah.
This is conspiracy theory. So if you're Kevin Sullivan, right, and think about it, you're not going to go off on your own. You've almost got to get permission from somebody, that could cover it up.
Facts.
So there's no way that Kevin Sullivan would have ever, but if there was an opportunity, I'm not saying that Kevin Sullivan did it. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. I'm not at all, because that would make me, I would be held liable, but I'm saying that, I don't know. But the motive is there. You know what I'm saying?
Facts.
I'm not saying that it was about Vince's, notebook, but what I'm saying is that if this is the case, then Vince would have, been able to cover this up. He would have had the money to go ahead and pay off those people. And, if people were really interested, look up the people who were investigating it. And if they come into a sudden, wealth and retired soon after, then we can probably know that most of these people who were investigating this got paid or compensated in some form to never let the truth come out. Now, with that being said, Kevin Sullivan's not going to be the kind of guy that can cover something like that up. You know what I'm saying? So ultimately, where I could sit there and say is that, Kevin Sullivan, if he did do it, then somebody was helping him. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
Somebody had to cover this up for him. I don't know. Like I said, I don't know if Kevin Sullivan would do it. I don't know if Kevin Sullivan would get somebody else to, I know some people down in Georgia. However, according to certain people that were close to Chris, I think this also comes from Nancy's wife and that Dark Side. I didn't watch the whole Dark Side of the Ring.
Yeah, I didn't either, and I'm going to put that link at the bottom of the description, the one that you sent me.
Yeah, that's the Billy Jack Haynes, and that was a good interview. But I didn't watch the whole thing. But according to those people who did watch it, Nancy's sister said that somebody was, that they were afraid. That they were, afraid of somebody that was out to get them. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
And, according to Chavo, they were concerned. They moved out to a house in the middle of nowhere in a small rural area in Georgia.
Yeah, Fayetteville or something like that.
Yeah, and they had a P.O. box, I think. I don't even think that they had like a mailbox.
Yeah, it was a P.O. box.
Box, yeah. Because that's how worried or concerned that somebody was after them.
Like a mob almost.
Yeah, and you take into the fact of the consideration. Now, this has been out there for a while. And while I don't have the direct evidence is out there because I'm sure that people were seeing this out. But it was reported in one of these wrestling forums a whole 24 hours before the bodies were discovered, mind you, that that before he even committed the crime, a whole 24 hours before whatever happened, that Nancy Benoit had died. You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
And then it was taken down immediately. But there's a lot of people that have that evidence that because, like I said, you can't put something like that on the internet, especially like today. You could never, put anything like that. Somebody's screenshotting it and saving it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But at the time, it was a little bit more hard. But like they actually, somebody on a forum somewhere, and I forget who it was, had reported that Nancy Benoit had passed away 24 hours before this even happened. You know what I'm saying?
Wow.
So I mean, it's really, really whenever you put it all in perspective, you're like, okay, what's really going on?
So in other words, when we talk about Chris Benoit, and it doesn't fathom to your head that he would be on roid rage, or what they call it, dementia or whatever, brain damage, and he just killed his wife and kid, and that was the end of it. And he killed himself, and that was it.
I could probably believe roid rage a little bit more. Although, like I said, Benoit didn't really look like he was on steroids to me personally. He was, buff and big, but whenever you're talking about steroids, he would have, looked like, whenever they say this guy looks like Mr. Potato Head.
Yeah.
He was a built guy, but he wasn't like, a roly-poly guy, and he still had these moves in the rings. And whenever you get that big and you get that top-heavy, some of the moves that he was doing would have been kind of harder. So while I can I think that roid rage would probably be a little bit more of a legitimate answer than the 80-year-old, because he's not going to have let's just go ahead and rule that out right now. Let's just go ahead and throw that out. There's no way that Chris Benoit could have had a brain of an 80-year-old with dementia.
Okay, well, can I ask you this? He was a high flyer, right? He jumped off the top rope, landed on his head with headbutts, and do you think he could have suffered brain damage after a long tenure? Because he's been wrestling in the 90s.
Let's just go ahead and say that he didn't have a brain of an 80-year-old with dementia. Now, you could sit there and say, oh, yeah, he did, kayfabe headbutts, and, yeah, this is what contributed to Dynamite Kid to the same kind of moves. Mm-hmm. However, he didn't have the brain of an 80-year-old with dementia. Because if he would have had the brain of an 80-year-old with dementia, people would have known it. You would have heard stories about Chris Benoit doing this, and you would have heard about it. People would have known about it. People would have said something about it. People would be unwilling to work with the man. And, listening to all those stories, there's no way. A fan would have known about it. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Somebody would have seen it. Because you cannot function. An 80-year-old man with dementia is not going to, go out there. Look at Joe Biden. That's the perfect fucking example of a guy who had the symptoms of an 80-year-old with dementia. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
This guy forgot who his wife was not that long ago. And then he called his wife his husband, and he confused his wife for his sister. That's what they act like. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. And there's no way that Benoit could have been able to do a wrestling show, be on TV, and not only that, be doing it at a high degree that he was, to have a title put on him. You know what I'm saying?
All right, now to be fair, Polston, I'm looking at Chris Benoit's brain scan, and it's showing pictures of what it would be a healthy brain versus his brain, and they have talking about advanced CTE. They talked about, before they even called it CTE, And you could tell by his brain he's got rips and tears and looks like swelling inside of his brain.
Because you've seen a picture of it on the internet. But they could sit there and show you any picture. It's the same thing with this corona stuff. People are making videos saying, oh, don't play with corona. But there's no conclusive evidence that's actually his brain scan. They just put that up there and they say, hey, this is what his brain looks like. But there's been nothing to sit there and suggest throughout his history, which you can see and you can verify. You know his history. You know he had the championship put on him. You didn't hear any stories of him flipping out and going back to his third grade elementary school in Canada. You know, you didn't hear him flip out having a alert for this man. And those are symptoms of dementia. Those are symptoms of Alzheimer's. Those are symptoms of an elderly person who doesn't have full functionality. And Benoit did have full functionality. So we can pretty much say that this is all kayfabe.
Well, can I just read to you what the autopsy results found, and then you can comment on it. It's
kayfabe.
Well, I just want to read it and just give me your opinion to this. It says that it says here. It said that he killed his wife Nancy, suffocated 7-year-old Daniel before hanging himself. Autopsy results show that Benoit's wife was murdered first, as she was bound at the feet and wrist and died of asphyxiation on June 22nd. Nancy was found wrapped in a towel with blood under her head, although Fayette County District Attorney Scott Ballard reported there were no signs of any struggle. The couple's son, Daniel Christopher Benoit, also died of asphyxia, apparently killed as he was lying in his bed on the morning of June 23rd. Then on the evening of June 24th, Benoit committed suicide in his weight room when he used a lat pull-down machine to hang himself. He placed copies of the Bible alongside the bodies of his wife and son, as well as a third Bible next to his own body. Since Benoit's suicide, numerous explanations for his actions have been proposed, including chronic traumatic epilepsy, which is CTE, steroid and alcohol abuse, and fell in marriage. The incident led to numerous media accounts and federal investigations into steroid abuse into professional wrestling. I was wondering, is it... Okay, so they're saying one morning he kills his son, he kills his wife on the 22nd, kills his son on the 23rd, kills himself on the 24th. Doesn't that seem a little odd?
No, I mean, it seems scripted. And, it totally is. It almost sounds like, he was giving alternatives. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. They killed his wife and whatever it was. Oh, okay, well, they killed his son, and then they killed him, but they did it within 24 hours apart. If this was roid rage, all this would have happened within, a certain set of time.
Facts.
You know what I'm saying?
Facts.
And so, that's one of the reasons why I don't think that it was roid rage. Do I think it was CTE? I mean, none of these marital problems or marital issues ever came up until after. It was a week. Like I said, WWE gave Chris Benoit a tribute. Then they stopped mentioning him. And then ultimately, they came back to mentioning him whenever the ratings went down. Because to be honest with you, maybe whenever Chris Benoit died, WWE died too. Because, the ratings have consecutively went down, and maybe this is, like I said, God coming back to haunt Vince.
Well, remember, allegedly the year before he defeated God at Backlash. Remember that?
Yeah. So now, because there's a few theories that I have, but I'll go into the second theory, which I sent to you. And this comes from Billy Jack Haynes. This is from a Billy Jack Haynes interview. Now, whenever you talk to anybody or you hear the interview, Chris Benoit loved his son Daniel. He was there celebrating. That was his whole life. You know what I'm saying? Was his kid with Nancy, was Daniel. You know what I'm saying?
That was his only son, correct?
He has another son.
Okay, so David is his other son. Okay.
Yeah. So, this is according to Billy Jack Haynes, is that Vince McMahon always messed around. He's a man of power. You know, you've said it before. This man's ego is so big that he booked himself in a match with God and beat God.
Yeah, and so buried him, yeah.
Right. We know the guy's ego is big, and it's not just, you know, just in the WWE. He has a big ego. And guys like him is a me guy. You remember I was telling you about that in one of our other... He's a me guy. It's all about Vince, and it always has to be about Vince.
Facts.
So Vince took luxuries with these wrestlers' wives. You know what I'm saying?
Of course.
And,
Of course.
Yeah. Yeah, he took luxuries with these wrestlers' wives. He had known Nancy for a while, according to Billy Jack Haynes.
Okay.
Because she came in, she had been in the business for a while. She had worked with Vince before. Vince had messed around with her before. And so, you know, we come back with the Kevin Sullivan. She's married to Kevin Sullivan. Now, this is going to be really, you know, like I said, this one's really, really bad. But, of course, whenever she came back with Chris Benoit, supposedly, and this is, like I said, this is according to Billy Jack Haynes, this isn't me, she was, you know, Vince was there yet again messing around, you know, with Chris Benoit's wife, with Nancy, because they had already had a rapport and stuff. Billy Jack, you know, says that he actually seen, you know, Nancy back there giving Vince McMahon and some of his other close friends blowjobs and stuff.
Yeah.
I don't know. I cannot confirm or deny this one way or the other. This is just what this man's testimony was as he was giving his interview on Vince and Kennedy McMahon. So, he had assumed, he goes, you know, he said he knows that they've had to have sex. And from what Billy Jack Haynes said, was that it could have been one or two possibilities. He said, you know, technically Daniel could have been Vince McMahon's illegitimate son. You remember they had that storyline with Hornswoggle, and you know how Vince loves to taunt his fans anyways like this.
Yeah.
Where Hornswoggle was his illegitimate son.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You remember that?
Yep.
And so, yeah, because that was like a big ongoing storyline for a few years. They used that. And I mean, Vince McMahon is a sick puppy anyways. He was going to actually book Stephanie and Shane having an affair and having a child. You know what I'm saying?
I had no idea. Wow.
Yeah. So the guy he's not there. You know what I'm saying? I would believe Vince McMahon suffers from dementia more than Chris Benoit at this point. However, yeah, he's not all there. He's definitely a textbook sociopath. So, according to Billy Jack Haynes, that Daniel could have been Vince McMahon's kid. Now, I'm having a hard time still believing, even though if he found out, I'm sure it would have crushed him. Maybe potentially he could have flipped out because of the death of Eddie, and you know he was going through a dark time. You know, and then this hits him. Maybe could have potentially killed Nancy and Daniel.
I was gonna.
Sure if he would do that.
I wanted to tell you that. I didn't mean to interject, but when the night that Eddie died in 2005, I think it was August of 2005, they found him in a hotel room laying there with pills beside him, suggesting that he had a heart attack or something like that. Rumors has he was overdosed on his pills. Rumors has it was steroids. I don't know. I mean, who knows? He died in some hotel in Minnesota. But anyways, the point is that Benoit found out about the news, and you could tell he was really taking it hard on SmackDown when I don't know if you saw that video, but he was taking it hard.
Yeah, I saw the video. So potentially that could have happened. He found out that Daniel wasn't his, and then just snapped. But so that means that he would have killed Nancy, for finding out that she had an affair with Vince and that Daniel wasn't his. And then it took him a whole 24 hours to work up the nerve to then kill Daniel.
Yeah.
However, whenever you hear, the thing that gets me a little skeptical is how he hung himself. Now, I'm not saying that it's impossible to hang yourself, but how they found the body hanging there on the gym equipment, the way it was, facing the mirror, opposite of what he would need to do to hang himself, that makes me a little bit skeptical. Now, if you were to ask me what would be the more likely scenario if he found out Nancy was having an affair and the kid wasn't his, I would probably think that Chris Benoit, I don't know Chris Benoit, but like hearing the people who knew him, that he would have immediately probably reached out to Chavo and would have probably stayed with Chavo.
But wasn't he texting Chavo and them like days before the suicide?
Yeah, and like the thing is Chavo, and the thing about this story is it doesn't cover the fact of both Nancy's sister and both Chavo said that they were paranoid, like people were out to get them. And it looked like they were out to try and do something to his kid. He was protecting his kid pretty much because they were afraid for Daniel. Now, with that being said, here's the caveat, here is the other side of that.
Okay.
Could have Vince found out that Daniel was his illegitimate kid? How much damage would that have done if it would have came out that Daniel Benoit, Chris Benoit's son, was actually Vince McMahon's son through, probably what you would probably, because like I said, Vince McMahon has actually had rape allegations against him.
Oh, I had no idea about that.
Yeah. There's been sworn testimonies ever since the 90s of stuff that this sick man has done.
Wow. So,
this would have been another allegation. And then, what would that have done to his marriage with Linda? Could have probably taken half the WWE if it just didn't full out collapse. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And people just turned it off because of, what kind of man this is. It would have definitely put him in a bad situation. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, exactly.
So maybe he could have been trying to kidnap or abduct Daniel to go ahead and, eliminate Daniel Benoit. And he may not, Daniel could have been Chris Benoit's, but Vince didn't want to take that chance of it being his kid.
Do you think Vince McMahon thinks he's God?
I think that this is the problem with most people like Vince McMahon, is that they have that omnipotent complex where they think that, it doesn't matter what they do, that they're, they give themselves omnipotence over everybody else that they in life. And Vince McMahon is one of those guys who's given himself that omnipotence, but he doesn't contribute anything else out. You know what I'm saying? He's not the guy that's going to contribute anything. He's the guy that takes advantage of everybody else. That's who he is. Vince McMahon doesn't have a creative fucking bone in his body. He was pretty much handed his daddy's fortune, and ultimately, at the end of the day, he doesn't have that creativity. He relies on other people. So he takes advantage of other people. Why would this be any different? If you know a man constantly takes advantage of other people, then why would I somehow, not think that he would totally take advantage of a wrestler's wife? He totally would. You know what I'm saying?
Well, I understand something. In that type of business, it wasn't uncommon for wrestlers to sleep around with their wives. I mean, Miss Elizabeth did that all the time. Sable, there were other women, I'm pretty sure, that were doing that as well. China,
Yeah, but that's my point. If he's going to take advantage of other people, if he's going to take advantage of
hey, you're breaking up. You're breaking up.
A quality show, you get Roman Reigns over for him.
Okay.
Huh?
Now go ahead. You get Roman Reigns.
Get Roman Reigns or somebody, a potential talent that he wants. Are you there?
I'm here. I'm here. Hello?
Okay. You get a Roman Reigns or somebody over that he's been trying to get over for years, right?
Yes.
And, you know, he takes advantage of you. You know what I'm saying? That's what Vince is. He just takes advantage of everybody. So why wouldn't I think that, potentially he would have taken advantage of Chris Benoit's wife if he had the chance? And, you know, eventually, you know, you do that enough times, it's going to come back to bite you.
I mean, yeah, you got to tell there's some. Go ahead.
Here's the theory. You said this one. This one is actually yours.
Okay.
And so, there's a third possibility.
All right.
Which, you know, goes on to why would you use this? You know, you remember whenever you said that some higher elite people were looking for Vince.
Yeah, so he faked his death. Yeah.
Yeah, that's why, you know, whenever he killed himself off on WWE to get on screen and whatnot,
yeah, there
was some higher elite people that were above Vince that were looking for him. I don't know why they were looking for him, but, you know, could it have been that Chris Benoit had some information on Vince, maybe regarding Eddie, who knows, and that, you know, he cooperated with some sort of authorities. They wrote out a narrative, they wrote out a storyline, and they just went ahead and did the storyline, and Chris Benoit was in the witness protection program. Possibility. You know what I'm saying? And they wrote this story. It didn't make a lot of sense. The story doesn't make any sense.
Well,
however, they wrote this story out. They played it out. And, you know, who knows?
So let me ask you this. So if Vince faked his death and then left the show for like a couple of months and then came back and was like, yeah, I faked my death. There was people looking for me. Wouldn't that be stupid on his part? Wouldn't he just stay gone? Or his ego just wouldn't allow him to stay gone?
Yeah, I don't know. He might have stayed gone forever if whoever it was, if somebody was looking for him. You know, maybe he worked out some sort of deal or something. You know, I think
he paid some people. You know, I think he paid the people off that were looking for him.
Yeah, that would probably been. You know, he probably just killed himself off, which everybody knew was kayfabe anyway. So let's just make no mistake. It wasn't the fact that he killed himself off on TV to make whoever it was go away. No, he killed himself off to buy him some time off of TV. Is why he was doing this.
Okay.
And then maybe the Chris Benoit thing could Chris Benoit have been a sacrifice? Who knows? You know what I'm saying?
Wow, this shit goes deep, man, when we talk about this.
It does. But like I said, the story that makes the least sense to me is the one that you're talking about with the brain damage that Chris Benoit.
CTE.
Am I saying that it was impossible for him to get brain damage? No, I'm not. But what I am saying is that he wouldn't have been able to function as a professional wrestler. He wouldn't have held the title.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? You would have known about it. He'd have been slurring speech. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, it says symptoms of CTE include memory loss, confusion, impaired judgment, impulse control problems, aggression, depression, anxiety, suicidal, Parkinsonism, and eventually progressive dementia. These symptoms often begin years or even decades after the brain trauma or the end of active athletic involvement.
Right. But at this point in time, he's already suffering from these conditions.
Yeah.
So if he's already suffering from these conditions, he would have showed symptoms of that. He would have already been way past all that kind of stuff.
Facts.
He would have already been dealing with the brain trauma. So now we're talking about, like, he would have had to have been slurring his speech. He'd have had to be impaired in some different ways. He'd have great memory loss. This stuff was switched. This wasn't like this. This wasn't his story going on with Chris Benoit that week that they had the tribute. This stuff just came out towards the end of it, and it's just like the media, which I think we're going to do another show later about the media. You construct narratives and because I know you know about like Matt Holloway. But this is how they create narratives. So they put a narrative out. And then they got enough people invested in it to talk about it. You know what I'm saying? A lot of people, this is why I call a lot of people that listen to the media, I call you shills. And that's why. Is because I got to get you to bite in on it. Once you bite in on it and you start promoting it like it's real, then they know they can have something to go with. Well, now you get a group of people around there that get all sensitive about the issue because somehow they're a wrestling fan and that makes them entitled to their opinion means a little bit more than yours. And so they're like, oh, fuck Chris Benoit. Now you have something. And now you stick with that story no matter what, so nobody can question it. And the problem is that when people do question this and point out the facts that there was never no signs or symptoms of this CTE, there's no signs of, you know, the Parkinson's, the memory loss, the, the slurred speech and stuff like that that comes with it. There was no signs of that. Well, now you're called a conspiracy theorist because now you have the lynch mob that is going to be like, screw Benoit, and if you're a Benoit defender, you're just as bad as Benoit is, because they can't, you know, they can't rationalize and reason for themselves that this story doesn't make any sense. The story that you're telling me doesn't make any sense, and I refuse to believe that. You know what I'm saying?
So
until you can find me some proof.
Okay, so his son David Benoit, right? His current son, I don't know how old he is. He's got to probably be in his teens, right?
Well, he's going out for WWE, so he may be a little bit older than that.
Okay, so where was he during this whole murder thing? Because if this was like 13 years ago, he still has at least but he had to have been either between 5 and 10 years old.
Well, I'm going to assume that that David was probably from a previous marriage.
I think so too.
You know, Benoit was married before Nancy.
Oh, he was married before that? Oh, okay, I didn't know that.
Because they were got together because they were both having problems in their relationships.
Oh,
supposedly,
wow.
Supposedly, Kevin Sullivan was starting to be more abusive to Nancy, and you know they kind of gravitated towards each other because both of them were having marital problems at the time. And that's how they essentially got together. So, yeah. So I'm going to assume that David is from his first wife.
Wow. So, I wonder if Nancy ever did any... Was she in that documentary at all? Or did she ever speak out? Or is she just being quiet about the whole thing?
Who?
Nancy.
Nancy's dead.
No, I meant his previous wife. I meant.
Oh, I don't know. I don't remember seeing her on the video that I watched.
Okay.
It was mainly David, Nancy's sister.
What about Sullivan? Did he say anything?
Jericho?
Kevin Sullivan say anything?
I don't know. I didn't watch the part one. I didn't see him on there. It was Jericho. I think it might have been Chavo. Which, if you ever watch the interviews with Chavo during this time, and the interviews that he gave, it's very, very suspect. You know what I'm saying?
What do you mean
your
by
brain,
that?
Huh?
What do you mean by suspect?
Means that he was in contact. He talks about the paranoia that Chris was having and that people were after him and whatnot. And that whenever he was getting these strange texts, you'd have to go back and see the interview. He's getting strange texts, and it was almost like a coded message, like, you know. However, you know, Chavo also said that before they found the bodies, or before he, you know, they were going to gather everybody, and Ric Flair came to him and said that they had lost Chris. So that's kind of weird.
Yeah, that is weird.
You know, Ric Flair would fight no before, you know, a lot of other people would. And I would like to know whenever Rick told him that.
Didn't it almost seem like whoever killed him, if somebody killed Benoit and his family, it seemed like they were telling certain people in WWE, yeah, this guy's dead.
Yeah, pretty much. Basically, you know, and that's tyranny. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. That's the mindset. You got to instill fear into your guys. Hey, you fuck up, you know, this could happen to you. You know what I'm saying?
Sort of like a mob hit, almost.
Yeah,
or like a gang.
It's almost is what it seems like. Potentially, like I said, the one thing that it's hard for me to believe. I'm not saying that anybody is above anything, because any river long enough contains a bend. You know what I'm saying? And I'm not saying that, oh, he's totally incapable of doing this heinous crime. I'm not saying that. I'm saying that it's apparently a narrative that people bought into the narrative. Can you still hear me?
Yes, yes.
Are you there?
Yes,
okay.
yes.
Yeah. So apparently it's a narrative. The narrative doesn't make any sense. People are buying the narrative. And all I'm saying is that I think that, it's time we go ahead and give Chris Benoit, Nancy Benoit, Daniel Benoit their just due. And to sit there and say that this narrative is bullshit. For all of them. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And then find out what really happened so we can go ahead and put this to bed.
But I think if we were to find out what really happened, that means someone's getting arrested, and I don't think those people are willing to go down quietly. So if anybody was to investigate or do their own personal journalism, you could be next.
Well, fuck them. I got a gun, so I can tell you I don't play fucking nice neither.
You might get a call from Vince McMahon. He may say, hey, but you could get a call from Vince himself.
I'll tell you what. Hey, Vince, go ahead and send him down here, because I got plenty of fucking spots for him. There's a lot of places to hide bodies down here, motherfucker. But, yeah, I just think that we're entitled to an answer. And, as a, wrestling fan, it's insulting to me as a person with that had a grandma that was 80 years old, that had dementia, and that had all them signs that you were talking about.
Yes.
It's insulting to me personally that they would roll this out there and say, you're going to go ahead and take this and you're going to like it. Fuck you, Vince. I'm not one of your fucking puppets. I'll just go ahead and call it like it is. Do I believe this shit is shady? Yes, I do. I don't believe, if you're going to do, because like I said, I really wasn't interested back in 2007 when it happened. The only reason that I looked into it is because a friend of mine said that Benoit was one of his biggest heroes, and he was sad, but he said that he didn't feel right about the story that they were giving with this. It said it didn't seem right. And, initially I'm like, okay, well, you're a fan, so you're going to be a bit biased. But whenever I started looking into it, I started to see all the stuff that he was saying, and then I was confirming all the shit that he was saying. And then I'm like, man, you're right. This doesn't make any sense. Yeah, it doesn't make any sense at all. And so whenever I started to get the story and put the pieces together, I was like, man, how did anybody believe this?
Okay, now here's the weird part of the story is they called the police to report Benoit missing, right? And they said that, quote, he didn't show up to Vengeance, or he didn't show up to his area where he was supposed to show up to. How did the cops obtain a search warrant to kick in the door and to search? Like, how were they able to gain entry? Like, how did it go from just them reporting him missing to where they're like, oh, okay, we're gonna bust in his door and see if he's there?
Yeah, and know where to find him at. The whole story doesn't make any sense. And like I said, if doing years of fucking security and knowing law enforcement like I do and whatnot,
yes,
there'd have been no fucking way. There'd have been no way I would have turned that report in and put my name to it, because then that would make me liable. I've actually had issues. I've actually, I don't want to say been terminated, but I've actually asked for new assignments just because I wasn't comfortable with putting my name on certain reports.
Wow.
Because you could be held liable for that.
Wow.
So, yeah, there'd have been no way that me personally, if they would have said, yeah, we're going to put you on the Chris Benoit case, I would have said, no, you're not, because I'm not going to fucking do it. Because I know that if the motherfucker that we're covering for goes down, we all go down. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I'm not putting my ass in the fire. So I can understand why some cops in Georgia would be reluctant to do that case, and to open up an investigation. But
because
like
if they did investigate this, they did a shitty ass job. Because if you came up with that story of the 22nd he killed her, 23rd he killed him, 24th he killed himself, and the numbers just aren't adding up, like, and the investigators, if they did an investigation and came with that conclusion, they're not really the sharpest tool in the shed in their department.
Yeah, Yeah, I mean, like I said, and this sounds like it was written by fucking Vince McMahon himself. You know what I'm saying? And it's not even a great storyline. Like I said, people are so conditioned today to sit there and say, "Oh, well, we got to believe because they know better than us." I haven't seen any proof of it yet, because if they knew better than us, guess what? Chris, Nancy, and Daniel would probably still be alive. We wouldn't be having this fucking interview if they knew better than us.
Facts.
But apparently people are just, they give up free will. You know what I'm saying? You give up free thought. You give up, your right to an opinion.
Well,
for the sake of, you want to be like everybody else. And, that's kind of like the society that we live in today.
do you think that this really shows how much power Vince McMahon has? That he can give a crummy-ass story like that, and then it sells, and the investigators can't even touch it? That really shows you how much power he really has. A lot.
I don't think it shows how much power that Vince has. I just think that,
Or influence.
to me personally, it shows how people have, just lowered all inhibitions and have become so apathetic. And I'm a firm believer that there's a lot of power, in public and society. We never use it. They tell us that this corona's killing a lot of people, and we self-quarantine. But I can tell you right now, because I go outside, I go to work in this shit every day, I don't let it keep me at home. And I can tell you the world's still the same as it was every other fucking day before corona.
Facts.
All your shit's still out there. I don't see any dead bodies in the street. The government's not burning dead bodies out here in the country. You're not having this mass pandemic is an illusion. All I see, the only place I see this on is on Facebook, when you're sharing posts and you're saying it's safer to stay inside. Don't chance it. See how gullible you are? You just need to grow up a little bit and take, responsibility for your own actions. Could you get sick? Could you get the flu? Could you get a coronavirus? Yeah, potentially. But, that's the chance. It's called life, and you're going to have to start living it at some point in time. And people are going to have to start, understanding that, this doesn't make any sense. You know what I'm saying? If it doesn't make any sense, then you should question it. You have the obligation as a citizen to sit there and question these things. If it's not all adding up, if it's not all coming together, if it seems and it smells funny, then you should question it.
Yeah.
Don't just sit there and say, "Oh, well, it's none of my business," or "It's none of my concern," or "This is a problem." It's because we've gotten so apathetic now, we're self-quarantining ourselves. And that's, if the people realize that they had more power than they thought, then they would, they'd be like, "No, I'm not going to sit here and do this. You're going to have to change some stuff around here." One of my this guy on Facebook, we were sitting there talking about the economy and the stimulus and the careless spending and the stuff like this right here. And we were talking about having a convention of the states, which is totally legal. We should have had a convention of states whenever I was young, and then we wouldn't be in this mess today with the needless spending and all that kind of stuff. To where now we have quantitative easing 5, QE5 coming out, and they're printing out more and more and inflating your currency even more and more with this inflated deficit that they keep inflating with these government jobs that they're trying to, make for you, just to stick you somewhere to give you a $60,000 salary. We should have put an end to this a long time ago and say, hey, it's time that we start giving states sovereignty, start limiting government power, because the government's getting too big and we're becoming codependent on government subsidies.
Facts.
We need to depend less on government subsidies, start opening up the market. But they have people so conditioned right now that you've got to listen to the CDC, that you got to listen to WHO. And if they sit there and say that you've got to shut down your economy, then you've got to shut down your economy. And if you don't, you may step outside and die of corona, and that's ridiculous. I mean, it's ridiculous how people are acting right now.
It is.
And,
it is.
It's just crazy. You know, you didn't.
No.
And now they're trying to keep people 6 feet apart from each other.
Yeah.
And giving. I don't know what country y'all live in. Y'all may live in Germany in your mind or whatever it is. Whatever put into the fucking TV shows today that I don't watch. But whatever they've in mind, you need to go ahead and get some of that stuff out. Maybe you need to watch Stephen Rose for a little while. Listen to us rant about the stuff. However, freaking condition. That's what it is. And, if society would stop accepting this conditioning that they have and wake up and realize, hey, I can think for myself. I go ahead and I can take my own risk. I don't need the government telling me that I can't go eat at my favorite Mexican food restaurant or my favorite Chinese food restaurant. I don't need the government to sit there and tell me that, hey, I need to stay 6 feet away from somebody. I don't need the government. That's your fucking opinion. And, your opinion is about as good as fucking Hillary Clinton's book. I could go ahead and take your opinion and use it as toilet paper.
Facts.
You know what I'm saying?
So let me ask you this.
So, I mean,
going back to the whole Chris Benoit thing, because I had a question to ask you about that. We talk about all these theories, right? We've discussed pretty much all of them, right? All the scenarios that possibly took place. And I'm pretty sure there's probably some other weird scenarios thrown out there that we probably haven't even discovered or talked about that could possibly be one of those theories as well. But out of all those theories, if any, which one sounds the most reasonable to you? In other words, what do you think happened personally? Your personal belief?
Well, given some of the interview stuff, like listening to Chavo, listening to Nancy's sister, and hearing this stuff, I think that potentially maybe something did happen with Nancy and Vince. Like I said, I don't know if for sure that Daniel could have been Vince's kid, or if Vince thought that Daniel. And that could have had something to do with it. You know what I'm saying? I think that it seems like a hit to me, given the positioning. And like you said, the first day Nancy was killed, the second day Daniel was killed, the third day. It's almost like he was given options. You know what I'm saying? And they made him watch. That's the way it seems to me, given the full aspect of what we know, what they've put out. This is your story, so I'm just going off of your story. Giving the interviews with Chavo, giving the interview with Nancy, if he was paranoid, if people were looking for Daniel, it makes me lean a little bit more towards it was more Daniel than Eddie now at this point. You know what I'm saying? And then, like I said, we can pretty much guarantee that Vince's did this before. There are interviews out here, so I meant, testimony. So it gives a little bit of credence to that. Now, could have Benoit knew something, and could he be in witness protection right now? Possibly. You know what I'm saying? That's a possibility too. But I do believe that apparently that kid was the target. So all of this was, pretty much revolving around Daniel in some form or fashion. You know what I'm saying? That's what it seems like to me. And that's according to Nancy Benoit's sister. And that's according to Chavo, putting those two together, that they were paranoid. They were living out. They were trying to hide. They had the P.O. box, like I said, according to Chavo, because they didn't want anybody around their house. That seems to be what the deal is. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. So there wasn't any reports of Benoit and his wife having any problems in marriage, like they weren't fighting or arguing, or...
There wasn't any reports until after they were discovered. You know what I'm saying? I would have never known about that. Like whenever Stone Cold hit Deborah, everybody fucking shit. You know what I'm saying? It was, news, and they had to, do something with that to get that to go away quickly. But whenever there was a domestic, abuse from Stone Cold, everybody, in fact, Dark Horse still calls fucking Stone Cold Wife Beater 316 to this day.
Wait, who calls him that?
You know what I'm saying?
Who calls Stone Cold that?
Huh?
Who calls Stone Cold that?
Dark Horse calls him Wife Beater 316.
Oh, that's funny.
Just for fun. Yeah.
Well, I know he
So,
dragged
it's not
Deborah
like
one
that
time. He
was-
body slammed her and dragged her through the house, I heard.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah. See, you heard about it though,
Yeah.
but nobody heard this shit until like after Benoit's body was already found. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I mean, you know,
Do you
I
think-
didn't hear anything about any kind of like domestic.
Yeah, Stone Cold
afterwards-
caught a domestic charge for that, too. It was on the paper. They call his real name is Steve Williams. He's from Victoria,
Yeah, I
Texas.
know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know, but we don't have any like good documentation to say that they were having some sort of argument. Now, could that mean that does that mean that they didn't have any after Benoit found out?
You're breaking up.
It's
You're breaking
that's
up.
a possibility. You know what I'm saying?
Okay, I can hear you now. Hello?
I said, does that mean that they didn't have any problems after she found out that she was doing the deal with Vince? I don't know. You know what I'm saying?
So let me ask you this. I know many wrestlers have died over the years under the age of 40. They had like a bunch of names. Do you think Chris Benoit's death sort of opened the Pandora's box to the ugly side of the ring? The stuff that nobody talks about?
Not really. Nah. Because me being from the 80s, I'm dating myself. I believe that Pandora's box would have been opened by the Von Erichs. Because all of them died young.
Mm-hmm.
Except for Kevin. First David, and then Mike, and then Chris, and then Kerry. Yeah.
Were they all dead by
That
steroids?
what? No, they weren't dead by steroids. I forget what David died of. Mike had gotten sick really, really bad, and he came back from that, but ultimately he committed suicide.
Wow.
Kerry committed suicide, and Chris committed suicide.
Wow, dude, that is just unreal when you hear all those brothers dying like that.
And if you Billy Jack Haynes says that Vince was responsible for Kerry's death.
Really?
That's what he says. He says he's the one that got him hooked on something. I don't know. He got him hooked on cocaine, I think. I don't know. But in that whole WCCW, you had all of those people died. Not just the Von Erichs. You had Gino Hernandez. He died probably in his 20s. I'm sure that
Brian Pillman, you had Brian Adams, a lot of wrestlers.
Chris Adams,
Yep.
gentleman Chris Adams, he died pretty young.
Oh,
I
yeah.
think he died in 2000.
Yeah.
You had like if you ever watch the Heroes of World Class Championship Wrestling
Yeah.
and whatnot, and that documentary, most of them are dead.
Umaga died before he was 40. How is it that all these wrestlers are dying so young?
Who knows? But like I said, it's a crazy business. I just know that, like I said, it's almost surreal. You know what I'm saying?
I don't know. It seems like the WWE's the wrestlers that are in now seems like they have it a lot better.
Yeah, I know that the Ultimate Warrior, there's another one for you. He had been doing shoots on Vince and Hulk Hogan for, basically this drug lifestyle. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Nancy Benoit, of course, said that the wellness policy in WWE was a joke for years, which everybody knew. And it was there in name only. You know what I'm saying? CM Punk came out and exposed that. You're probably right. The wrestlers that have it today, well, it's not a good product right now, and that's mainly because of creative. The overall wrestlers have it better today than they did whenever they were, pretty much running these people ragged. Of course, it'd be me, and I was operating a wrestling show. I would rotate my roster. You know what I'm saying? To where I didn't have to depend on a Macho Man and a Hulk Hogan predominantly. I would rotate my rosters out and then build up separate rosters. Like I'd have Hogan and Ultimate Warrior there for maybe, say, 8 months or something. And then I would give them give them like maybe 8 months off and then bring in another roster and then build them up and then introduce them in slowly to where you're always constantly having new matches and everything looks new. That's how I would run it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Rotate the rosters out. And,
doesn't it seem weird? Doesn't it seem how Ultimate Warrior's death was kind of a little weird? He comes on Monday Night Raw, pulls a weird promo, says, "No matter what happens to me, I'll always have Warrior blood, da 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 da," and then the next day he had a heart attack walking to some restaurant with his wife.
Well, I'll tell you, because Dark Horse called me up whenever he was cutting that promo, and I saw it live. Wasn't watching WWE at the time. I had already, made up my mind that WWE wasn't going to facilitate its fan base anymore.
Mm-hmm.
It's all about Vince. You know what I'm saying? And I think that a lot of the reasons why this company, I think that it's pretty much to the point to where that's Vince's mindset. He still thinks he created WWE. No, you were handed that company pretty much. But with that being said, he's destroyed the business ultimately, and he's got that mindset. But Dark Horse called me up and says, "You've got to see the Ultimate Warrior, man.
Yeah.
He doesn't look good." And this promo right here, now I wish we would have done a video on it beforehand, but we didn't, because we were sitting there watching it and we were talking about it. And of course, I had to go to work the next day. But we knew something was wrong with the man.
Look, he got inducted in the Hall of Fame at WrestleMania 30. That's the one in New Orleans that I went to, where Taker lost a streak to Lesnar and Daniel Bryan won the championship that night. Ultimate Warrior went on Monday Night Raw right after that and cut a promo, and then he died 2 days after that. Isn't that crazy?
That Raw. That was promo. And Dark Horse called me, and we watched it. And, we were talking about how he didn't look healthy. He didn't look good. There was something wrong with him. And, Warrior was one of those ones who was going to write a book exposing Vince McMahon, Hulk Hogan, in the business.
So what's Hulk Hogan's involvement? I know he was on roids, but what other involvement did he have?
That would probably be something that you would probably have to go back and look at some of the Ultimate Warrior's video shoots. He was like Vince McMahon's drug dealers. He was there to solve problems. Supposedly, he's the reason why Macho Man Randy Savage and Miss Elizabeth separated.
Wow.
And, according to Ultimate Warrior, that was what Hulk Hogan was. He was there to keep turmoil and drama and keep the wrestler's life, keep them dependent on Vince. You know what I'm saying? Ultimately. And that's what he did.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
And then they made the New World Order and all that. I know that wasn't Vince, but do you think WCW was controlled opposition by WWF or WWE?
I think that quite possibly Ted Turner, well, I don't know, because I hear both sides of the story.
Okay.
Ted Turner was a big wrestling fan, and he didn't want it, and it all had to do with AOL. Mm-hmm. But, certainly, of course, that goes back to fascism. That goes back to your elitist type talk. You know what I'm saying? Where, if you don't go against the powers that be, and I think that they said that, well, we're only going to go with Vince right now. He's going to be the only game in town. And so wrestling is going to predominantly be with Vince. And that's whenever wrestling really died at the end of the day. It was good. It was good there for a while, but, eventually it was just, this is what happens. You know what I'm saying? There's no competition. Everything is dry. You're not getting enough people built up to keep a reasonable show, so people walk away. You know what I'm saying? And they invest in other products, particularly in a product like wrestling that's completely kayfabe now. Thank you, Vince, for ruining kayfabe. And so now people are more cynical whenever it comes to wrestling. I know they're trying to establish AEW. AEW is definitely controlled competition. ECW is definitely controlled competition by Vince. Ultimately, you know, if it wasn't for The Rock and if it wasn't for Stone Cold, and if it wasn't for some of the smart creative that was still wrestling oriented people, bookers and stuff like that, creative, then Vince McMahon would have ultimately lost to WCW. It wouldn't have even been a contest. WCW was the bigger product. It was better. Their stars were more established. It was more mainstream. What saved WWE was Stone Cold and The Rock. If Stone Cold and The Rock doesn't get over, if they don't get over, and they don't do what they were doing in WWE, there's no way Vince could have competed with WCW. No way whatsoever.
They were losing for 83 straight weeks on Monday Night Wars.
Yeah, they had the better production. They had more mainstream presence than Vince did. You know what I'm saying?
When they brought that NWO out, dude, that was sick.
Yeah. There's no way that Vince, and they were taking all of Vince's big guys. They took Kevin Nash. They took Scott Hall. They took Hulk Hogan. They took Bret Hart. They were taking all.
They even took Ric Flair. They took all of them. Sting. Everybody.
Yeah, they took all of them, and they were a hell of a lot bigger. Everybody thinks it's always been WWE was always the biggest. WWE is lucky to make it out of the 80s because WCCW here in Texas was kicking their ass. WCCW would go up to Vince's own territory, and they would kick Vince's ass in New York, in his own yard. They would kick his ass.
Wow.
That was whenever WCCW was running the show. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And WCCW was getting so big that NWA was getting intimidated by it, so they, stopped doing business together. They always respected each other's territories. You know what I'm saying? If Fritz wanted to, Fritz could have taken over the business. Could have been.
Hey, you're breaking up.
The reason why his sons were. That could have been possibly why his sons were, taken out.
Yeah.
Too. Because Fritz had more of a wrestling acumen than Vince ever will in his whole fucking life. And but Fritz also had the respect. He respected everybody. He respected the AWA territory, Smoky Mountain West. You know what I'm saying? NWA. He respected all his colleagues and whatnot.
Yeah.
So, ultimately Vince took over. Well, when Vince took over, that already big eccentric ego of Vince's just got even bigger. You know what I'm saying? So now it's like Monopoly. Now they're trying to reinvent the wheel, as I've been saying for years, that they've had to bring back the territories. So they open up an AEW to compete with NXT, which is not great. It's not the same thing. Basically, it's just like a carbon copy of NXT. So it's not great. I've watched the shows. I'm not a big fan of what they're doing right now. I think guys like Roman Reigns and Braun Strowman would be better off in Impact or in NWA. I think that those companies right there growing, we could essentially come back to seeing another renaissance in the wrestling business. But you're not going to get it with AEW, and you're not going to get it with WWE. They're not going to put in the effort that it takes to build these people. And they're catering to Twitter, and you can't cater to Twitter. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You got to cater to Facebook, because that's going to be where you get a reliable fan base. You're not going to get it on these with these Twitter shields, because they have no interest. Oh yeah, they'll sit there and share with each other, but you're not getting any fan base off of that. ultimately they need to go back to the territories. I think NWA, Billy Corrigan, is a good product. Of course, your uncle right now wrestles for a independent promotion.
Yeah.
But a lot of these independent promotions are going to have to start working together and, expanding their rosters and then opening up another territory. Because I think that's ultimately what's going to reinvent wrestling like it used to be.
Dude, indies never used to, well, indies was a thing in the 80s, but then in the 2000s, or in the 90s, but the 2000s, nobody really cared about indies wrestling, like local in your window gym. Now everybody's going to watch indies wrestling. Everybody.
Yeah, and like I said, you need a full roster, and that's the problem with ROH. That's why ROH is going out. Is because you need your bigger guys, you need your Braun Strowmans, and you need your Daniel Bryans. But it's like everybody that goes to watch WWE or AEW, they only want the acrobats. They don't want the big men anymore. But you need something for everybody.
So who does ROH have? Who does ROH have? Do they have any decent wrestlers?
Well, they had Velvet Sky at one point in time. But I think Marty Scurll is the one that I'm familiar with. Now, ROH and NWA have been working together. Of course, Moose is an Impact. He's an ROH guy. We know CM Punk was an ROH guy. Daniel Bryan was an ROH guy. They have a caliber of talent there, but it's like most of their card seems to be like mid-card wrestling. You know what I'm saying? Mid-card to transitional champions. They don't have a full roster. So you need heavyweights, you need those middleweights, and then you need the lightweights, and then you need your women's division. And, every once in a while, you can pit a lightweight against a middleweight, and then a middleweight against a heavyweight, and you can use them as transitional champions and whatnot. However, you need a whole roster there. That's one of the bad things that I said. That's why I wasn't high on Daniel Bryan, is because you need, like, a guy like The Rock to put over the whole roster. You know what I'm saying? He can fight the little guys and, get interest in the little guys, and then he can fight the bigger guys and get interest in the bigger guys. But you need that, somebody like that there. You can't get over a full roster with a Daniel Bryan. You know what I'm saying? It's just not going to happen. Because if you're a bigger guy and you beat Daniel Bryan, if you're 7 foot and you beat Daniel Bryan, and Bryan's like 5'8" probably, in real life, not according to your Wikipedia stuff, he's probably about 5'8". Well, then you expect the 7 foot guy to beat the 5'8" guy. But if he beats the 7 foot guy, well, the 7 foot guy is ruined now. You know what I'm saying? You just ruined him. And that ends up being the issue, is that you don't have a lot of the old school bookers. Everybody's afraid to hurt somebody. Everybody's afraid to sit there and say that, it's a discriminatory lawsuit, like with the Jordan Miles thing. And so that limits creativity. That limits what these people can do, to where it's like, all right, you go out there and do whatever the hell you want to do. And, but yeah, good luck. Do
you think Jordan Miles overreacted for the shirt?
Huh?
Do you think Jordan Miles?
I definitely do, particularly since he picked it out. You know what I'm saying? You picked the design out. So, I definitely think it wasn't over. I think it was a publicity stunt. I thought that the man thinks that somehow he can go along with this virtue signaling, and that somehow we're supposed to cater to you. That doesn't make any sense.
He claims he claims they picked the design and they switched it on him.
It's ridiculous. It's a publicity stunt. That's what it is. And he even admitted it. Then he came back and changed the story. So it is what it is. But that's not interesting me. You know what I'm saying? I'm not going to sit there, come back and say, well, I've got to go back and see this Jordan Miles guy and see if he's any good or not, because he got outraged over the shirt. Nobody's talking about this crap. Nobody really cares. Nobody knew who Jordan Miles was in the first place, and the few people who would care and do videos over and over about it, they're kind of irrelevant because they're going to watch you anyways. So it's not getting any interest into people like me who would consider going back and watching it because of a Braun Strowman, because of a Roman Reigns, these are probably going to be the guys that you're going to draw with.
So in other words, Jordan Miles hasn't even gotten an offer after that, has he? He just kind of just went away.
Do you offer him something like after he gets something like that?
Nope.
Now, if he handled himself a little bit better, okay, I'd understand. I'd say I think you're overreacting. However, okay, whatever. I think that you're trying to stoke those superficial flames of segregation and racism and all this other stuff. But he went overboard with it, and yeah, he's irritated most of the wrestling fans, and so most of the wrestling fans are not going to invest in you to where if you would have conducted yourself a little bit more professionally, hey, I could have probably, said, hey, you know what? Yeah, you didn't want the design. Why did you do this?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I could have backed you on it. But to go off on a little tirade on Twitter, that just shows me you're doing the smoke and mirrors.
So let me ask you this last thing before we go. Do you think Mr. McMahon should have postponed WrestleMania? You got now Roman Reigns not showing up because he said he with his condition of his beating leukemia twice, he's not going to risk it with the corona. And now they're going to put Braun Strowman up against Bill Goldberg, and they never really had a storyline to begin with. And Vince seems like he's not budging. He wants to go with this show with 4 matches in one day and 4 matches another day. I mean, does this make sense? Should he just postpone it?
Well, considering how I think Corona is a bunch of fucking bullshit anyways.
Yeah.
People need to have entertainment to watch. This is one of those times, which I don't do it very much, but I agree with Vince. I'm not letting it ruin my life. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I'm not there, and particularly Vince would probably know even more than I do how much bullshit this is.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't let it stop my day-to-day life. I don't do it right now. If I was a fucking billionaire who was running a show, which you're going to watch, which, you rely on to keep a little bit of sanity, which I'm not saying that's what it is, but it used to be, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You watch the show, and you're entertained by it, and you're stuck at home, of course I'm going to take advantage of that. You know what I'm saying? Of course I'm going to still do the show. It's not going to be any audience there. It may be dry, but at least I'm putting forth the effort to try and entertain, the fans. So, I mean, I don't fully disagree with his actions in that case.
All right. Well, hey, man, look, we're going on 1 hour and 28 minutes. I guess we'll just go ahead and wrap it up, man. I want to take the time to say thank you for doing this interview with me, man, and hopefully we'll have more in the future, and I will be posting this up on Saturday. So for all you watching wrestling fans, I've learned a lot from posting on this whole Chris Benoit, Ultimate Warrior, Hulk Hogan, Vince, the whole business, man. I learned a lot more today, and I just want to say thank you for doing this interview, man.
Not a problem, man.
And we'll be doing more videos in the future. Hopefully we can get some more people involved from the YWC. This would be very interesting to have these discussions,
Yeah.
Okay, so we're going to go ahead. Go ahead.
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
You said so.
I was just saying I totally agree.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm going to go ahead and sign up out of here because it's about to go dead. So I just want to say, thank you for being a part of this. And just want to, this was a good video, man.
All right. Thanks, man. Appreciate
all right.
it.
So
Appreciate you having me.
Till next time, it's Steve Rose and it's Polston, and we are officially signing out. Peace.